Let's talk about survival mode and how to get out of this not so nice state when you're basically scared, when you're not allowing yourself to fully be you and be okay with that, feeling safe with being that. This is going to be a three-step process. And the last part is actually the most important one because this is where you really learn how to stay out of survival mode. So, to begin, we need to identify what is triggering us to be in this stress response, this fight or flight. What is the main cause? It may be a trauma, it may be a shadow, it may be something that you don't want to accept, that you don't want the world to know, that you've hidden from yourself. And once you start to acknowledge this, that's when you can start to process it because awareness, that's what will start any of these processes. It's basically healing. And without awareness of something, you can't even know what it is. So the first step is identifying. And I recently made a shadow work video where I go through the concept of finding your shadow and this system called Gene Keys. If you haven't checked that out, I highly suggest because you will find out your particular shadows and the basically the karma that you've come to earth to transcend the shadows. You can transform them into gifts, but you can check that video out. And sometimes these things that take us back to survival mode, they may be a habit, they may just be a negative trait or something. So it's also important to remember that it doesn't always have to go through shadow work. It doesn't always have to go through trauma and stuff like that. But the first thing is to become aware of what it is that triggers your fight or flight. What is the thing that triggers your nervous system to get into this stress response? And that basically then puts you in a fearful state, in a low energetic vibration, and life becomes really difficult. And that's not what we want. I've experienced it a lot in my life, and it's been this up and down, up and down. And life quality isn't that great. I know when I've had this extended period of time where I've had a positive state, when I've been in potential mode, what I like to call it, it's so much better. And that's what I'm here to help people do and achieve to stay in that potential mode. Let's move on to number two. This is where acceptance comes in. You have to first become aware of the thing that is triggering, that is lowering your state, that is keeping you fearful. And then you have to let it in. You have to start sitting with it. You have to start accepting it. And this can be a really tricky thing because if you don't feel safe with yourself, it may feel impossible to accept it. And you may have a really negative self talk and you're talking down on yourself. But once you accept, let's take for example that you talk down to yourself and you have this negative loop in your head. Once you accept that, oh, I'm actually doing this, I'm having this negative thought loop, what usually happens is that you snap out of it because you become the observer. You become the one who just looks at it as if it was your friend or some other external thing. And this is where first you become aware of it, then you accept it, and then you kind of step out of the game and you realize like, oh, now when I have accepted it, I was able to escape it, and then you can start to transform it. So it's always going to be awareness first and acceptance second. And this process of actually allowing in those things and accepting that you have negative traits and you have traumas and there may be a lot of shame and guilt and all these emotions. Once you accept them, you let them in, you feel them, you don't try to suppress them anymore. You just feel them, you surrender into those moments, those difficult feelings. What happens is totally counterintuitive. It lets go. The emotion, the thing that you are afraid of, the shame, the guilt, the fear, it actually starts to soften from the inside out. And when you start to soften these things and when you learn to fully surrender to your emotions, you surrender to your nervous system, that's where you actually find your power. That's where you will realize that these things that had a grip on you, that had a hold on you, that were keeping you from reaching your dreams and doing whatever it is you want to do, they don't have the same effect anymore. And when you become the observer, you're like, so what? It's like, whatever. And by doing this process intentionally with awareness, it works every time. The problem, and now we're getting to number 3, the problem usually then comes when you process some kind of trauma or negative thing or shadow or whatever it is. You feel great and you're like, yes, now I'm in control. Then you continue your life. And what will usually happen is that you forget to be that aware. You forget that you just went through this process and that you came out on top. And you kind of fall asleep again, and suddenly you realize you're back in that shithole. You're back in that survival mode. You're back in that negative state of fear or something like that. And you're like, what happened? What happened? And this is why you need to start thinking about getting into a potential state, this positive state, as a habit. It's not that when you get into the positive state that it's going to stay there forever. You have to work for it. And when you work for it and when you have daily habits that will keep you in the positive state, it's much less likely that you will actually fall down into this survival mode. Because the longer you can be in a positive state, the longer you can train your brain to stay in a positive, optimistic state, you have an attitude that sees opportunities and you realize even if something bad happens to you, you have trained your mind to see like, wow, even if this one door shuts, there's going to be a new one that opens that's probably going to be even better. So the third step is to create a daily habit or habits that will keep you and remind you of that, wow, I have this power. I'm going to cultivate this power to stay in this optimistic state, because if you're not consciously doing that for long enough, you eventually will fall back. You will get back to your bad habits and you will fall back into these old thought patterns. Only by reprogramming your whole system, your mind, your body, your nervous system, everything for an extensive period of time, you will get out of survival mode completely. That's possible to actually live in an elevated state all the time, even if the external world says that you can't do it because we're so focused on news and all this bullshit that just wants to keep you in a low frequency and in a low state because it's easier to control you then. If you commit to actually staying in a high vibe state, in potential mode, in a high energetic state, you will start to realize that those things that used to weigh you down, they were just so unnecessary. And you could have actually lived a much better life. And when you decided now, the rest of your life will be better. And the techniques that I personally use is journaling and meditation, and also to become consciously aware of triggers. If there is a relationship in your life that is like, oh, this usually gets me into a low state, or there's some people, become aware when you are dealing with those. Or if you go out and party and you know that usually when you go and you get drunk or whatever, maybe 2 days after that, it's like you are on the verge of dropping down into the old self and be like, wow. I don't say you have to completely give up all these nice things once in a while. You can go out and party, you can go out and get drunk, whatever. It's part of life. What I say is that you have to be really aware after that. You have to understand that, wow, this is like I'm going on thin ice. So I need to be careful and I need to plan out my life in a way that these 2 days of transitioning back to the high vibe, because I wanted to enjoy a moment, I wanted to kind of, alcohol is kind of like you borrow some of the positive energy from the days after. And once you go in with this mentality, you understand that, wow, okay, so this whole trip of partying is going to take me 3 days to get back. That's okay. You plan it in advance. This way, you will never actually drop low enough to get caught there. It's your it's kind of like you're able to visit those low vibe things like hangovers and stuff like that. But it's okay because you have already a plan to get out of it. Once you start living this with conscious awareness, and this parting thing was just like a thing that's for me in my life that has been like, at some point it was a huge problem, and I've realized that, wow, I need to plan this whole thing better in order to be able to actually stay in a high vibe state. And even if I get dropped off there into this lower fear state, I remind myself of, hey, now you're getting in the wrong direction. Okay, let's just pick it up from here and go and do things that actually will help you. And one major thing is that you need to have some kind of project. You need to have such a big project in your mind that it's like, oh, I could work on this for a year, because then you know that, okay, I'll just go back to focusing on this. I have this thing that I'm actually passionate about. I have this like too big goal that I know that I can't just make it in one day. That will also pull you back into potential mode because you get inspired. You want to do something. You want to build something for the future. You want to be that person who actually is capable of achieving that. So, this 3 step process, first identifying what it is, then allowing it in, accepting it, and eventually you will just embody it. And then the whole going back into survival mode won't ever happen again. And then number 3, you have to become aware and basically have daily habits to keep yourself in this high vibe thing. And also like surroundings and people, all these negative things that are taking you down, be willing to let go of them. And also be willing to let go of your negative emotions, feel them and let go of them. And you will just have a so much better life. It's not even about achievements. It's not even about money or any of this. If you do this 3 step process every day for an extended period of time, let's say for 2-3 months, you're gonna find out that what you were looking for was actually the internal satisfaction, the state you are in And when you become happy in the moment, when you're grateful for who you are, just to be alive, that's it. The $1 million won't do it. Any of the external things won't do it, only for a bit of time, and then you drop down again. So my suggestion is do this 3-step process. Find out your traumas, your shadows, your negative tendencies, anything that is weighing you down. Let go of them, bring awareness into it, and you will naturally start to rise like a cork in the ocean when you let go of the weights. And then you create a practice for yourself to actually keep yourself there. And in a few years, you're going to look back and be like, wow, I'm never going back into that because I'm just deciding to be a positive person. I'm deciding to live a life that is in a positive state. I'm an optimistic person. I trust the unknown. I trust life. And that way, you will eventually reach your full potential, because the only thing stopping you from reaching your full potential is all the baggage, the negativity holding you down. We are naturally high vibe. We are naturally optimistic and positive. It's just the baggage. And it's not only even your baggage, it's baggage from our family lines and all these ancient things and survival and wars and all these trauma. We also keep those, and once we become aware of all that, and especially like from our family, our parents, and all these tendencies to start acting and doing things in a similar way, become aware of them. Become aware of them, accept them, and then you can start to change them. Because once you have accepted them, you step out, you get a broader perspective, and you're like, hey, I don't want to be that anymore. And you slowly start to change your identity to someone who's optimistic, who's got a lot of friends, who's got a lot of opportunities, who's got a lot of business ventures and all these cool things. Whatever it is that you want. It's this simple 3-step process: awareness, allowance, and then the decision to become someone who don't go back to where you were. That's gonna be it for today's video. My name is Mitz, and I'm here to help you get out of survival into potential mode, because that's the process I've been through a lot of these years, and I've decided to keep on going. And if you want to follow along, subscribe to my channel. Other than that, I'll see you in a future video. Peace out.